Hello everyone, this is the Bon Jovi Talk podcast. Today's episode is because of the 30-year anniversary of These Days, which I highly doubt that the band are gonna make a fuss over or anything like that. But that's what today's podcast is going to be about. And somebody on Twitter before, or X if you want to call it X now, asked if I could do like a rating of each song, which, well, I've got 10 minutes free, I may as well do now. I'm literally going to go through the album track list as it is on the album, and include All I Want Is Everything and Bitter Wine, because obviously that was on some releases as well. For me, and I put this on Bon Jovi Talk before, it's the best album by the band, for me, by a mile. And that's, I love New Jersey and I love Keep the Faith and stuff like that, but this will always be leagues above them for me, I think. Sorry, I had to pause that for a second. I thought someone had come into the gym reception. Again, apologies for the squeaky chair as well. So yeah, I put on Bon Jovi Talk before that. I'll do a little rating of it. As I was saying just then, it's the best album for me. I love New Jersey, I love Keep the Faith and so on. But this will always be leagues above. I think just John's vocals, Richie's guitar tone, the songwriting itself, the production, it's almost perfect to me, that this album. There's maybe one or two that are subpar, let's say, but there's many, for me, perfect songs. So yeah, as I said, somebody asked me to do it, and I thought, rather than putting it on Twitter and, hey God, is this something brilliant, is this, I thought I'll go through it on a little video, and see what you guys think. Obviously there's going to be a couple of songs that we don't agree on. There's probably going to be some that aren't 10 out of 10 for people and are, but for me there's there's a few 10 out of 10s, I think. So I have wrote them down, so if you see me looking, it's not because, oh my God, he doesn't know it off by heart. I've wrote me rating here just so it's quicker for you also, and for me, because I said I've probably only got about 10 minutes before my next client's in. So Hey God for me is 10 out of 10, I'll be honest. I think it's the perfect opener. I think it's a great song. Obviously I wasn't a fan at the time. I was only 3 years old 2 years old even when These Days come out, the album. But Hey God, I think is the perfect opener for a band that have, come back after Keep the Faith. I think it's a real rock song. I think the guitar work from Richie is up there with the best he's ever done. I think John sounds incredible. It's a little bit different for Bon Jovi. It's a little bit heavier than probably 90% of the catalogue. And I just think for me, it's a 10 out of 10 song. I absolutely love it. I love it live. Even in 2010 when they were doing a little bit more, I absolutely loved it. And I just think it's an absolutely brilliant song. And the perfect album opener, if I'm honest with you. We look back at, if we look at some of the openers for the last few albums and stuff like that, compare it to Hey God, and you shouldn't really compare them type of songs, but that's how you open an album, in my opinion. So yeah, 10 out of 10. Something for the Pain. I've only given it a 6 out of 10. It's not my favourite song, it never has been. I don't think it's a bad song, and I think, if it was on an album post 2000, there's a big chance it would be a little bit more than 6 out of 10. But I've only given 6 out of 10 because it's okay. There's not much more I can say about it. I think Richie, in the bridge is brilliant. And the video was pretty cool I haven't watched it for years, but from what I remember, the video was pretty cool. But as a song, I think it's, straight after Something for the Pain, straight after Hey God as well. Yeah, it's not the best for me. So to me, a 6 out of 10 is pretty fair. As I said, if it was on something from 2020 or This House Not For Sale, or oh my God, what's the last album called? Forever. It'd probably be much higher than a 6 out of 10, but unfortunately it's not. This Ain't a Love Song, again, 10 out of 10. I don't think it should have been the first single. I know obviously they were trying, maybe because Always was such a big hit, that they were coming back with another ballad, but I think this may have worked better as a single if it was second or third. But a brilliant song, absolutely love it live as well. I think it's a brilliant song live, to be honest with you. I'm saying a lot, Scouse, sorry. This Ain't Love Song is probably a 10 out of 10 for me though. I just think, again, John sounds amazing. The intro with Richie's guitar, I think the video's decent. I just think the band look great in it, to be honest with you. I think John looks cool and matches that kind of era. And as I said, he matches kind of the Hey God look there, you know, that if there's a song you imagine him to look like that. So, yeah, I've given it a 10 out of 10. I think it's a great song. These days, 10 out of 10 again. So there's already 3 10 out of 10s in 4 songs, but I don't think you can argue really with them. I think these days is these days, you know. The intro is incredible. The lyrics are fantastic. Again, live, it's absolutely brilliant. It works live, it works on the studio. It's a different song really to what Bon Jovi probably had done at that point, and since. It's a song that I'll never get bored of listening to, and even though it probably isn't even in, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10, it probably isn't even in my top 5 to 10 songs by the band. It's still a song that, you know, if it was to say to people, okay, here's Bon Jovi, give this a listen, I think that song's up there. As I said, it's 10 out of 10 for a reason. I think the video's great as well, kind of going through, you know, the shows and stuff. I just think, yeah, I think it's a brilliant song these days, and it'll always be up there for me. As I said, I grew up listening to These Days song, and it's just one album I will never get bored of, and the intro in particular, I think it's just brilliant. Next one, Lie to Me. I'm torn between this. I've originally given it a 9, but it may give it an 8. I think maybe 9's a bit too generous, so I may give it an 8. 8.5 maybe, but for me, live, the Florida 1995 Tampa show is in my top 3 Bon Jovi performances ever. I think John is, certainly last couple of minutes, is incredible. If you haven't heard it, type it into YouTube, Bon Jovi Lie to Me Florida 1995. John is incredible on it, absolutely incredible. For me, probably the best he's ever sounded near the end. You know, the screams are unreal. And I think that's probably why I've given it a 9 at first, because it's live, it's one of my favourites, you know, that performance in particular is one of my favourites. But if I'm actually, you know, it's not a song I particularly go to, so I think maybe an 8 is a little bit more fair, so I'm going to go with 8. Again, if it was on another album, you're probably looking even higher, but there's that many good songs on these days, so I'm going to give it an 8. Let's be more realistic and give it an 8. Some might think it's more than that, some might think it's even less, but I think 8's quite fair. Damned to me is one of the most underrated songs. I think I know a lot of fans love it. When I say underrated, I think live it could have been played a lot more. You don't really hear that many fans actually speak about it. You know, we when it comes to this album, it is something for the pain, and to an extent it's hard letting you go, probably because of the live performances of that. It's 2010 and 11 and stuff like that. But I think Damned is up there for me. I'm going to give Damned, I think, a 9. I was going to give it a 10, but you know, when you compare it to some of the songs, 9 or a 10. I probably should have listened to the album before I've done this. I'm going to give it a 9, let's be fair, and give it a 9. There's probably, I don't know how they could improve it. Again, I think John's brilliant. I think it's such a, like, almost like a funky song. Again, probably different to what they'd done at that point. Maybe, you know, you could see it maybe on, you know, elements of like guitar work, Homebound Train or something like that, and I think, you know, it has obviously got elements to Keep the Faith, but I think apart from the maracas, I don't think there's another reason why people think it's compared to Keep the Faith. I think a 9's quite fair for Damned. I think it's a brilliant song, I really do. I'm torn between a 9 and a 10, and that's how good it is. So yeah, probably a 9 for me, but if it was to be, you know, maybe if I listened to it before I went on this, I'd probably go, oh, it's a 10 out of 10, but I'm going to give it a 9. My Guitar Lies Bleeding in My Arms, it's got to be a 10, hasn't it? You know, it lifts, towards the end, it lifts up so much. I always remember years and years ago, and I've probably spoken about this before, I can't really remember, but obviously it is quite like subdued at the start and quite slow and stuff, but I really like how dark it is. I think it's a real dark song at the start. I think the production's amazing, and then all of a sudden obviously John just kind of goes to another level, and I will never ever forget this. You know, I was probably a teenager or something like that, and my dad was in my room, and he was on the internet with me, and he was listening to the song, and you know, this was just kind of on in the background, and I'll never forget when John's kind of vocals kicked in. I could almost see his face, like, wow, where'd that come from? And he was like, what? We had a little conversation about it, and he was like, that was brilliant, that. And my dad was a massive fan of Keep the Faith, the album, but never really listened to anything else from Bon Jovi, unless obviously I had it on, or my brother at the time. And I just remember him being blown away by John's vocals, and I was like, you know, that's what a lot of people don't realise. You know, no one will ever listen to that song unless they put These Days album on. It's not a song you're going to see on YouTube or anything like that unless you purposely type it in. So I just think for the last minute or two, it has to be a 10 out of 10 song. I think that, you know, the first part of it's solid enough. I said I quite like how dark it is, but then it just elevates to another level. It's Hard Letting You Go. I'm gonna give this a 10 as well. This might be like, oh, you're not giving Lie to Me a 10, but you're giving It's Hard Letting You Go. It's Hard Letting You Go is a song that certainly 2010 onwards I found a new love for it. I always loved it anyway, but I found a new love for it after, you know, the O2 Arena performance and the Pro Shot came out, and I thought John nailed it, in all honesty. And I again, it was one of them songs where, you know, headphones in, kind of, you know, if I couldn't sleep or anything like that, I put Bon Jovi on. That was always a song that I was just like, wow, you know, this is amazing, this song. Again, the lyrics are perfect. John's voice is stunning on it. The darkness of it, you know, it's again quite a different ballad for Bon Jovi when you compare it to and Always at the time, I Want You. Trying to think of other ballads from like around that era. Bed of Roses even, you know, it's different to that. It's so much slower, and it's just perfect. It's almost like, you know, Make a Memory was almost trying to be that, in my opinion, and it never got close to it. Yeah, so It's Hard Letting You Go is just, and again, you know, the 2010 performance in O2 is much better than the Lisbon one, and even the Lisbon one's still good, but that 2010 It's Hard Letting You Go is probably in my top 10 live performances. I just think, you know, especially John kind of saying, you know, let's see if he can remember it. The whole crowd went silent. I always remember my mate saying, you know, you could hear a pin drop. You could see the focus on John's eye, you know, of John's face, trying to nail it. Richie's backing vocals are perfect again. Brilliant song, absolutely brilliant song. Heartbreaking Even, underrated in my opinion. I'm going to give it an 8.5 though, 8.5. I don't know why I wouldn't give it higher, but I can't think of any other reason why I'd give it less. I think an 8.5's fair for it. A lot of people compare it to like an Aerosmith type of song, and I can see the resemblance, but I just think again, John's vocals stunning. I've said that for nearly every song, but that's what this album is. It's full of powerful vocals. So yeah, I think Heartbreaking Even, 8.5. It takes me back to probably around like 2002, 2003. I remember going on Aldi, listening to I took, you know, when you had your little, I can't even remember what they were called. It was like a CD player basically, like a handheld one. And I remember I took These Days album and maybe one or two others. And you know, if I had an hour free, or you know, on the drive home and stuff like that, or journey home, I'd listen to it, and you know, that song takes me back to then, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think an 8.5's fair. Something to Believe In, 10 out of 10, up there probably in my top 3 songs by Bon Jovi. Live, fantastic again. You know, obviously 2010 kind of, it was still very, very good, and I'd love to have heard it myself. I don't think I'll ever hear it now. But 2010, you know, it was great, but 95, 96 and stuff like that, it was just on another level. Obviously the one that we all know is the Yokohama show, and you know, the long notes at the end and stuff. It just never ever gets boring. I think Richie's harmonies with John's towards that note are incredible. The guitar tone on it is so different, I think, from any other album. The lyrics are, I've seen a lot of people say lyrics aren't great. They're probably not, but they work, and I think that's what makes that song even better. It's just a stunning song. Again, another song I'd say, yeah, listen, this is Bon Jovi. If you think Living on a Prayer and all that is Bon Jovi, no, this is Bon Jovi for me anyway. So yeah, 10 out of 10. If that's what it takes, I've give it an 8. Maybe it could be a 7, to be honest with you, but a 7 or 8. Again, it takes me back to this very similar to Hearts Breaking Even. It's probably why I've ranked them so high. It takes me back to that time, you know, being a kid listening to the album all the time. 9 or 10 years of age, I fell in love with the These Days album immediately, and you know, these two ain't songs that are skipped, even though they don't get probably and they never got played live, but you know, they were just songs that I absolutely love. It's just, you know, this album is just brilliant. I can't believe I'm ranking songs like this so low, and I've probably ranked, I don't know, bloody I Love This Town or something not that far from it, and it just shows the difference in quality. Diamond Ring, I've only given it a 6, and the reason I've given it a 6 is because I prefer the other versions of it. I prefer the New Jersey version of it. I prefer the Keep the Faith one that we heard a few times, you know, like the electric version of it and stuff like that. I just much prefer them versions to it. I was made up to hear it live in 2008, I'll be honest, and I actually think it was the perfect intro straight into Always. So again, that's probably where it takes me back a little bit more, where I go, no, oh, that was, I mean, I thought live it was great again, Richie and John singing into the mic together, you know what more could you ask for at that point. But I'd only give it probably a 6. And then the other two songs, as I said at the start, All I Want Is Heaven and Bitter Wine. I'll be honest with you, and not because it's definitely not a bad song. I've actually given it a 9. I forgot all about All I Want Is Heaven for a long time. It's been a long time since I heard it, until today. Someone posted a video and I was like, wow, yeah, it's been a while since I heard that. All I Want Is Heaven, I've given 9. I think it should have made the album. There's a couple of songs it could have replaced, in my opinion. There's Something for the Pain. Imagine that as the second song. Diamond Ring, you know, they probably just wanted to get rid of Diamond Ring. They tried it that many times, but I think it could have got rid of that. And I think it's better than Hearts Breaking Evening, if that's what it takes. So I'm going to give it a 9. I'll be honest with you, know, as I said, I've seen it on Twitter earlier, but it was probably only a minute worth, 45 seconds, a minute worth. So I'd have to kind of go back and listen to it, but I've always really loved it. Just completely forgot about it, in all honesty, until I seen it today. And I have a tendency on YouTube to kind of go through like the B-sides and extra songs, bonus tracks and stuff, so I always listen to, you know, if I'm on YouTube, I'll put like Stay On, Walk Like a Man, Lonely. I kind of listen to them songs and Save a Prayer. And All I Want Is Heaven just completely slipped. I even listened to The End the other week. So I don't know how I never even thought about All I Want Is Heaven, but I'd give that a 9 out of 10. I think it's a great song. And then I've given Bitter Wine a 6 out of 10. It doesn't do nothing for me. Very similar to Diamond Ring, probably could have done without it. There's probably people who love it. I think it's okay, but there's probably people who love this song. In my eyes, still quite low. You've probably seen it on the last video I spoke about it. I had a bit of a problem with my eye. It's still quite low. So yeah, I'll probably give Bitter Wine a 6 out of 10. And again, that's not saying it's a bad song. You know, I've ranked songs probably 1, 2 out of 10. It's definitely not a bad song. I just think on such a solid album, I think that's probably fair. But yeah, that's my ranking for These Days. I love it. I will always love it. I will always say it is the best Bon Jovi album, and I always hope, you know, I hoped that Forever would be even 50% of what that album is, and to me, certainly since These Days, nothing has ever come close, not even. And as much as I love, say, The Circle, something like that, it's not, you know, it's just different levels. These Days is as close to perfect as the band got. I don't think anything will match it. I think it was Bon Jovi at the peak, in my opinion. I think the album was brilliant, and I know they were fantastic during the slippery to these days run, let's say, but they were just on another level. I thought John looked fantastic. I thought Richie's guitar work was unreal. The band were tight as ever. And I know obviously these days was the first time where I know Alec didn't do a lot in the studio, but certainly live it was the first time without Alec, John Such and stuff. But I think the band were tighter than ever, and these days for me will always be number one. I think I wish I was around that time to see them live. I probably still wouldn't be a fan now if I seen them because they are on a different level there. But yeah, you know, if the band don't acknowledge this album today, it's an absolute travesty. Honestly, they're absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, should I say, and they're daft if they don't. They're daft if they don't do it. Don't announce anything if they don't give us something, even a post that would do, just to kind of go, okay, at least they've acknowledged it. You know, the other day was the 30th anniversary from the 3 London shows, and John posted, I think, about Hampton Water, and yeah, it's just it's a shame because these are special moments in the band's history. You know, John got asked on the Forever Run what's his favourite show, and he said Bon Jovi at Wembley. Surely he means 95, not 2019, because again they were on a different level there. You know, for the band to not acknowledge what is the fans' best album, be a shame. But yeah, that's my review. Hope everyone agrees in some way. Again, I'd probably listen to the album and rank songs lower. I'd probably give other songs lower and other songs higher, but off the top of my head, that's what I'll go with. And apologies if any ratings have offended anyone, but it's just my opinion, and you know, I'd like to see everyone else's reply on Twitter or X, reply in the comments what your reviews are of in your verdict, and let's see how different they are. But again, thanks for listening, everyone. I've got a really good guest lined up. Spoke to them the other day, and hopefully get it sorted soon. Cheers.